Welcome, I'm Billy. You are a brave soul for clicking on this one because it's a long video, but there's so much packed in here. If you just learn from this video alone, it covers pretty much most, if not all, that you need for any of your woodworking projects. So with that, we're going to cover the constraints within the workbench of the SketchUp workbench, that is, and we're going to cover the transform of moving your bodies, your 3D models, parts around and attaching them to each other, rotation, things like that. So there's a lot there, a lot to learn. Take notes. Let's jump in.
So let's say, for example, that I've got a piece of wood right here. It's 2 inches wide, a 1/4 inch thick, just like this, and I want to create a miter joint. What you're going to do is you're just going to come in here and you're just going to draw a rectangle on the top of this face, just like this. And you probably want to go until you find the square. So in this case, that's going to be right here. And then all you're going to do is you're going to draw a line from the corner here to the corner here, and that'll split this. And then you can pull this piece right here and erase this line out, and now you've got this 45-degree angle right here. You could also come in here with the protractor tool, but then all you would do is you would just come in here, you would make this a group, and you would make a copy of this. You can tap the M key for the move tool, and you can rotate it just like this, and then you can flip it using the scale tool, or you could also just use the flip along option if you right click, but then you just kind of move this piece just right here.
For mitering in FreeCAD, we're going to start a new body, a new sketch. I'll use the XY plane. I'll set the perspective up there. Just this, I selected the pull down window or icon up here just to kind of give it that SketchUp feel. What we will do now is start a rectangle, and I will, there we go. You see that little X mark? That indicates that I have grabbed the intersection of that origin, that dot. So now I'm going to select with my mouse. Now we're locked into that origin, and I will do what he did. He set it with 2, so I'll type in a 2, select enter, and then now I'm just going to give it a 12 for 12-inch long board. Now we are fully constrained, meaning we're locked in to that origin point, and we have constrained it to 2 inches wide and 12 inches in length. So it is, right click, you can grab these dots and lines, and you can't move them. They're all locked in. And that's pretty important with FreeCAD. That's why I wanted to do this, this video, to stress using constraints and ensuring that your sketches are fully constrained before you give them thickness or pad them or do a pocket. It is down the road, when you have multiple bodies and parts and pieces going together, if they're not fully constrained and there's other parts referenced to your body items, it can throw your dimensions off. So it's just to get into a very good habit of fully constraining your items in the sketches will pay off down the road and save you many, many headaches. Believe me, I've been there since 2017 when I tried to learn on my own with nobody teaching me. I made so many mistakes and messed up so many of my models. Anyhow, let's go ahead and close this. It's fully constrained. I'm going to use this icon up here called Fit All to kind of center that, and then I'll pad it and we'll give it 0.25. I type that in for the length over here. You can push-pull it, but because I have it set in inches and it's not in increments of 1/4 inch or half, I can't get it set to the right length just by push pulling. So I have to type it in. And I'll type that in as 0.25, I believe is what he used. Select enter. There we go. Now, in order to cut the miter, I will select that face with my mouse, select the sketch. Let me come over here. I'm just going to use a polyline up here. And I'm going to start off on this corner here, the origin. There you go. You see the X. That's what you want. You don't want coincident constraint. We want to be locked in onto that dot right there with that X symbol shown. I'll select it. And I'll just do something like this. Just to show you. There you go. Locked it in there. All right. So with it unconstrained, the dimensional data locations can change. So in order to lock it in, we use these constraints up here, dimensions, coincident. You can make things perfectly horizontal or vertical, parallel, perpendicular, tangency, equal constraints, symmetry, and that is a block constraint. I don't use that one much at all. And what do we got here? Driving reference constraints. I don't use that one much either. I'll have to look into that one. But the other ones here, I do use often, and as you will too if you do woodworking, or I'm sorry, if you do FreeCAD. All right, so now that we got a rough triangle drawn, let's start constraining it. So we know we want this line to be, we'll first select the line. We want it to be a vertical constraint. So we could either use the pull down to select vertical. That works. But I want to undo that and show you that the way that this symbol works here, it makes assumptions on whether you want vertical or horizontal. So you don't have to do the pull down and come down and you select these two. So what we'll do is select the line and we'll just select that and it put it in a vertical. Likewise, if I select this, select it again, now it's horizontal. So now these lines are locked in vertically, horizontally. They're just missing dimensions now. We have 2 degrees of freedom. So we know that we want this line to be a length of, here again with the pull down, you get horizontal, vertical, distance. You get all these different types of dimensions you can select individually. Let me come over here. However, if you select something, 2 points or a line or multiple points, and you use just that symbol alone, it will auto detect what you're trying to do or assume. And you'll see right there, it knew that I wanted that length to be constrained. So I will select there and it'll give me the option to type it in. I'll select 2 and hit OK. Now that line turned green because it is constrained. It's locked in on this line with a length. Now you see the symbol on my mouse still has that wedge look to it. So I can continue just picking lines and it'll automatically, well, it'll assume what I want as a dimension. So let me select this line, select there, and I will type 2. Right click to get out of it. We're fully constrained. This triangle is locked in. Now I'm going to close it and we will put a pocket in there. And the pocket, the depth of the pocket, got a couple options here. We know that the board is a 1/4 inch thick, so we can type that in here. Or a lot of times what I'll do is to the first, meaning, there you go, it'll just go from this face to the next face, the first face. Select OK. and we have our miter. All right, now let's collapse that tree in the panel. Next, we'll make a copy of that body. So with that body already selected, come up here to edit, copy. I'll accept all of that. Okay. Select once in that panel, come up into edit and paste it. And there we have a copy of that body. They're both bodies are occupying the same space. So now we've got to select this body, right click it, transform it just to move it out of the way. Okay. That's what we could do. We could move it, grab that, move it that way. And you see it's kind of jittery as it moves. It's snapping to whatever's typed in here. So if I typed in 3 and don't select OK, and I grab that, now it's only going to snap in 3-inch increments as I drag it. And I'll set this back to 1 and put it back there. So anyhow, I'm just showing you that it's occupying the same space. Now, if I flip this over, I'll show you what I'm trying to do here. If you use the flip right here, wait a minute, let me undo this. Oh, set that back. There you go. I'll show you flip. Flip it. And it flipped it over and it's now offset below. And then now we have to make adjustments to get it right. So I'm not a huge fan of the flip command, so I want to put it back. And this is what I normally do, is I'll come up here to this origin mode and I'll custom, let's say I grab that face. Instead of flipping it on one of these lines, I'll grab this face right there. And you see that the intersection is right there in the middle, vertically in the middle of that face. And now what I could do is rotate it around. You see that U axis there? I have a couple options. I can grab this dot here and pull it, and it'll rotate it around that U, right? Okay. And I can also, in this rotation section for that U, I'll click in there once and I can use my the mouse rotor and I can roll it around until I get to 180 degrees, or I can just simply type 180 in there. Okay, so I just wanted to show you there's a couple of ways of doing that, and I'll select OK. Now we just want to rotate this piece around until this face and that face right there, there are flush with each other. So let me select this body here and right click, transform it. Now we want to rotate it around, but it's going to rotate off of these axes here unless we use custom. And we go in here and we try to select that line. That might work right there. There you go. See that W? That'll work. So let me go to there. I'll select that. So with that W line, we can rotate it around that W axis. And I want to set the rotation to 90 instead of 45. I'll type in 90. Oh, let me backspace, type 90. And you don't select OK, you just type in 90 and leave it alone. Come over here and select this dot here and just keep pulling it in that direction until it snaps 90 degrees. Select OK.
And you draw your piece of wood, just like this. And I'm going with 2-inch pieces of wood. 2-inch wide pieces of wood. I realize that actual pieces of wood aren't necessarily always exactly 2 inches, but for what we're doing here, we can go ahead and do that. So let's say that this is a 1/4 inch thick piece of wood again. If you come in here and basically what you would do is you do the same thing. You draw a square on the top of this right here. So just move your mouse until you get a square. And then since this piece of wood is a 1/4 inch thick, what you would do is you would push this down by 1/8 of an inch, just like this. So you're taking half the material off of this piece. So now you have that piece, and you do the same thing we did before, where you'd move a copy of this over here. You'd go ahead and rotate it. And then in this case, you could just flip it up and down, just like this, and then move this piece. It's probably best to kind of inference it over just like this to get everything lined up. But then you could just move this piece right on top. And you've got your half lap joint just like this.
We will start a new body, new sketch. We'll go on the XY plane here. And I will use this command up here to set the perspective just to give it a familiar SketchUp look. Normally I just draw straight onto the plane like that, but if you're used to SketchUp, you probably appreciate this 2-inch wide, 2-inch wide board. I'm just going to make it 12 inches long. We can select on this line here, and the width is going to be 2. And I'll just make that 12 inch long. And now what we want to do is locate this rectangle from here to this line over here. You can see now it's fully constrained. Well, it's not fully constrained. The rectangle is constrained by the dimensions. Well, it is locked in. There's a coincident constraint here when we attached it to this origin line. And then we gave it dimensions, and those are constraints. So that rectangle is locked in to itself. It just needs to be located now. And what I'll do is I'll just grab either the line or this point or even this point over here or this line. Doesn't matter. Something on this rectangle has to be referenced over to this origin line here. I'll select, I'll just select this line, select this origin line, and then just use this automatic constraint, dimensioning constraint, and see it just automatically assumes that we want to give it a location dimension. So I'm going to select that. I'm just going to give it like 2 inches. That'll pull it over closer to that line. All right, we're fully constrained. I'll close it. And instead of me like using the roller on the mouse or panning this around, when you come out of the sketch, sometimes I find it's buried over here underneath this task. And maybe that's something FreeCAD developers will fix in the future, that when you come out of a sketch, it'll automatically center it in the view for you. Until then, we do have this fit all. It'll just fit it all right there in the middle of the screen. That's pretty convenient. We'll pad it. He made it 1/4 inch thick. So over here on the right, I'll just type 0.25, select enter, and there's a board. What I'm going to do, I'm going to show you the clone command up here. What you do is you select a body. When you select this body, you can copy it, like with a Control-C or you can go up here and edit and copy it. And when you make a copy of it, it stands on its own. It's not referenced back to that body. It creates a new body. But when you clone, whenever you go back to the original body that you cloned and you do anything to that body, like put holes in it or chamfer it, or put a round over on it, it will also do that to the clone that you made of that body. I'm just going to take this opportunity to introduce that clone command to you. So with this body now selected, highlighted here in the screen, I will select the clone right here. And you see another body comes up. And if you expand that body, you'll see that the clone is a subset of that body. It's a part of that body. We collapse them. All right, now what I want to do is select this body, the clone. I'm going to right click it, select transform. And with this translation, I'm just going to set this to 1. I'm not going to select OK. I'm just going to leave that as 1. And then when I grab this arrow, it'll snap in 1-inch increments. For right now, I'll just put it right there. There you go. Select OK. Now this original body, I'll select that face, select a new sketch. In order to snap onto these lines, you have to pull these lines in for reference. So how you do that is with this external projection. So let me select that. And I have an option. If I select this face, it'll give me all 4 lines, or I can select the lines individually. Just for speed, I would just select the face and all 4 lines come in and the points. So now what we can do, use this rectangle command. You can see it attached. You can see the crosshairs there. As I get near that point, I'll select it with my mouse. And we know that it's a 2x2. So I'll select 2, enter, 2, enter, right click to get out of it. We're fully constrained. We'll select close, and that rectangle is there. And we want to put a pocket. And we want the depth of that pocket over here, the length, to be 0.125, and I'll select enter. So there you have it. What you did to this piece here, the clone will also change because it is relative to this piece now. All right, so now we just need to transform this piece, get it into place. And how we will do that is, first I will flip this piece over. Let me kind of skew it there. Okay. I'll flip it over and then I will rotate it around to get it into position. So how I'll do that, select that body, I'll right click it, transform it. And I want to flip it. I want to change the mode, the origin mode, to custom. And I will use that line. If I can get that line right there, you go, that line right there. Select that line. And now I can flip this piece over 90 degrees at a time. See how that's set to 90? If I set that to 45, then it'll snap in 45-degree increments. Boom, as I spin it around. Now let me put it on front. And because I chose to use this line here, as I flipped it over, this all stayed on the same plane. All right. So now, instead of hitting OK, let's go ahead and spin that around. Select this up here. Now I want to rotate this item here. And I want to rotate it using this line as an axis to rotate it around. So I'll select custom again. I'm going to select pick a reference, zoom in, select that line. There you go. So now I should be able to grab this dot here and start rotating it around. And it's set to 45, so I just snapped in 2 locations, or 2 increments to 45. All right. Now we just simply want to grab with this set to 1 inch. It'll snap over twice to here to there. This V axis line, I should be able to just grab that and pull it in the direction I want it to go, and it'll snap in place. Select OK.
And so the way that we would probably do this one, is we'd start off with our corner piece, which I'm going to assume is going to be 4 inches by 4 inches. We'd kind of pull that up a little bit, and probably put that in a group. But then what you're going to do is you're going to draw your little wood pieces that are going to come off to the side here. Like, let's say, for example, that I've got a piece that's going to be 1 inch wide, and we'll say 3 inches tall, which may not be a dimension that you use too much in woodworking. But what you would do is you would go ahead and kind of extrude your piece out just like this. And then what I would do is I would move it away from this. And I would come over here and I would use the offset tool. So probably what you would do first is you would figure out how wide you want this piece to be down here. So like, for example, if you take this piece and you figure that this is 1 inch wide by 3 inches high, you could come in here if you wanted to using the offset tool and offset that by probably 1/4 inch. And what that would do is that would leave you a piece that's 1/2 inch by 2.5 inches. But if you wanted to get more precise, the other thing you could do is you could come in here and you could use the dimension tool to say, like, for example, if you wanted to come off of here 1/4 inch on each side, you could just draw dimension lines just like this that are 1/4 inch off of each side, and then you could just draw a rectangle just right here, and then you could pull that to whatever you want your length to be. So like, let's say you wanted that to be 1 inch long, just like this. You could use dimensions to come in here and be very precise about the actual dimensions that you wanted this to be. But then once you create this piece, what I would do is I would come in here and I would make this a group.
We'll start a new body, new sketch, go to the XY plane. I'll change perspective just to give it that SketchUp feel. He used a 4x4, which I'll do here. I use the rectangle command. Then I'll select a 4, select another 4, and then we have a 4-inch constraint, 4-inch constraint. We have this line constrained to this origin line here. Now everything's locked in with except for dimension from here to here, which is at 1 degree of freedom that's indicated up here on the right. Now we could take this, let me move this out of the way, could select the point there, and we could make that point coincident to the intersection origin there to fully constrain it. But I'm just going to set a distance like from this line to this line. And I will just, oh, here we go. Let me try that again. That line and that line. And I'll just select 2. What the heck? All right, so we're fully constrained. I'll close it. I'm going to use this up here to fit all. And that kind of centers it in your screen instead of you trying to drag it, pan it around, zoom in and out. We'll pad it now, and let's just go for, let me zoom back somewhat. And we're just going to go for like a 12-inch height. So over here on the right, I'm going to type 12 and select enter. And that should be good enough. Then he used this face here to draw a header board. But in SketchUp, you can grab this face and use that as a reference and draw, and then you're able to drag that piece away from there. In FreeCAD, if I select this face and draw anything on that face, it will attach itself to that body. So that is something we do not want to do. So in order to detach the piece that we're going to draw, we use what is called a sub-shape binder. So first, let me show you what I'm talking about. You see this body up here, I'll collapse it so that just shows, it just keeps the model panel a little cleaner looking when I collapse it. All right, I'm going to select the face. I'm not going to constrain anything. I'm just going to draw something on it. And I'm just going to draw that, accept it. I'm going to close it, and then I'll pat it, pull it out, select OK. We still have that one body. And when I select that body, it's all together. I am unable to take that piece and move it because now it is attached to that body. That's the way FreeCAD works as in part design. So let's undo that. Now let's use the shape binder up here. And what that essentially is doing is just saying, hey, let's use this face as a reference in a new body. So we'll start a new body. For some reason, that sketch is still showing up there. I need to remove that sketch. I think it's that one there. There you go. And I'll select delete. There you go. That gets rid of the sketch. Okay, so now I started a new body. And with that body highlighted green, that means it's an active body. Therefore, now I can grab the face of the other body and then use this sub shape binder. Let me select that. There you go. Now over here on the left, what happened in this panel is it took a binder from this body up here, this face, and you can see now it's kind of tinted yellow. That's the binder. You could turn it off, turn it back on. Now what we can do is build a sketch off of that binder. But before I do that, because this body and the binder are shown together, if I select that and try to do a new sketch, it's wanting to create a new body. So, or make a dependent copy, and that's not what I want to do. So let me select cancel. What we want to do is up here, use this visibility or eye symbol. I'm going to select that, and we're going to make the body, the first body, invisible. Then that way we can select the binder and then a new sketch, and it attaches there. All right. Then I'm going to use this command up here, the external projection, and I'll just select that shape binder, and it gives me reference lines that I can grab onto. I'm going to right click to get out of that. All right, now we're going to be accomplishing what he did in SketchUp. All right, so I'm going to, you can see that coincident symbol is there on that line. I'll select, and I believe he had it as a 1 inch, select enter, and a 3. I think he did a 1x3. All right, right click to get out of that. All right, we got 1 degree of freedom. We have the 4 inches. We have the 3 inches identified, and we have, those are the constraints for the rectangle. The other constraint is this coincident to this line here. So now that's just going to slide left and right. So now we have to give it a location off of these points or off of this vertical origin line or off one of these lines. So what I'll do is I'll just select this and this line here, dimension it, and what do we want to do there? Oh, we want to go 1.5. And that should center it right there. There's another method for centering. It's a little bit longer. If you know the math in your head like I just did, then please do that. Otherwise, if you're trying to find the center of something, you have to do I'll give you a quick example. You would have to take and put it in construction mode and like do something like select that line, and you take that reference line and go down, and you get that coincident constraint, and at some point you're going to get near the midpoint of that line. There you go. Now you got a midpoint constraint, and when you select it, it gives you a midpoint. And then you can just put a construction line out here like that. Now you got a point to grab onto as a midpoint. But then you got the midpoint of this line here. And unfortunately, FreeCAD does not allow you to move something from midpoint to midpoint. So most of the time, it's better to do the math in your head. But I can see where if you had a length, let's just say that length was like 11 and 3/16, and you'd be scratching your head to find out, well, what's the midpoint of that? What you could do is just do what I just did here and just do a quick reference, like, okay, from that point to that point, now that I grab the midpoint, reference it, and oh, okay, 6 inches, boom, and then write that down. All right, I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And who knows, maybe in the future, FreeCAD will offer midpoint to midpoint selection to just kind of make it a little easier in the SketchUp, in my opinion. So if anybody knows a better way, please fill me in. I'm open to learn. Okay, enough of that. I'm going to close that out, and now we can pad it. And we'll just, over here, I'm just going to make it 12-inch length. Enter. Okay, I'm going to turn this other body back on. We want to select the binder. And down here to this relative, we don't want that binder to be relative. We want to select no. And I'll show you why in a second. Now that we can grab this body, first I'm going to collapse the bodies. It just looks neater to me just to have bodies, and you only expand them when you want to go in there and modify it. All right, so with this body selected, I'll right click, transform it, and I'm going to set this translation to 1 inch, type of 1. And then I'm just going to grab this, pull it, it'll snap in 1 inch increments. All right, and then when I select OK, we're good to go. Now look what happens if I select that binder again, and this time the relative I set to yes. Look what happened. That header, I moved it away from, I'll just call that a stanchion or a post, 4x4 post. But because the binder is referenced off of this face, for some reason, FreeCAD chose to default to yes on the relative, meaning that the binder stays relative to this face that you selected. So in order to break that relativeness, you unselect it, and there you go. It goes back to where we set that body. So that's a little, I'd call it a little nitnoid. But these are things that you kind of get used to using FreeCAD. It becomes much easier. And again, hopefully the FreeCAD developers will see things like that and fix it in the future, setting that default to to know for the relative on the data of that binder. Okay, so with that, now go around here, and he put a tongue on that face. This time, we don't need a shape binder. We're just going to go ahead and use that face because we want that tongue to be a part of that board. So with that face selected, I'll select New Sketch. The 4x4 post is in the way, so we'll come up here and use this, what is that, the toggle section view. I'll select it, and whatever is between your viewpoint and this plane that we're on, it will remove it so that you can work on the plane without the other objects being in your way. So put it on the left. Here, we will need to external projection, select that, just select that face, and then it gives us geometry that we can reference to. I'm going to put this back into not construction mode. All right, so what did he do from here? I think I believe he came in a 1/4 inch all the way around on all sides. So let me try that. I'm just going to draw a rectangle. And then I'll select this line and this line. And make that 0.25. Select this line, this reference line, pull this down to here, 0.25. And I'll grab this line. No, that's not what I want. I'm going to use the escape key. Right click. I wanted this line and this line, and then select that. And we're going to make that 0.25. Then we have one more line to do. Do this line and this line. Pull it off to the right, make it 0.25. There you go. And it is fully constrained, so we'll close it. We'll pat it. You can pull that tongue out. He set his to 1 inch, so over here on the right, I'll just type 1. Select enter.
And then I would kind of use the midpoint here to kind of inference this so that it's lined up with the midpoint on my corner piece. And then I would come over here and I would line this up so that it's actually in my piece, and then I would right click and I would say intersect faces with model. And then when I do that and I move that away, what that did is that intersected my peg piece right here with my corner piece, just like this. And so now what I can do, and since this is a group, I can either explode this or I can copy paste that geometry in here. But what I could do is I could come in here, I could erase out these edge pieces, but then I could push pull this in by 1 inch. So now what I've got is I've got my piece right here actually modeled so that it has a slot. Just like this, and it's dimensionally correct. So if I was to come in here and measure this just like this, it would show 1 inch deep. And so then you could kind of do the same thing with this piece over here. You could use like the rotate tool in copy mode to make a copy over here, and then do the same thing. We'll just move this piece in. We'll right click and say intersect faces with model. And then we'll move that back. We'll probably have to kind of draw over this to make sure this face stayed, but we'll just push pull this in by 1 inch. We'll erase the corner here, and then you've got your slot on this side as well.
In lieu of sliding this body over into this 4x4 post body and trying to get reference lines, it's more, I won't say it's impossible, but it's difficult for me because I don't know of any commands that will allow you to do that. So I'm open to correction if anybody can give me more information on that. As far as I know, the best way to do this is to just select this face, and since we already know the size of that tongue and the depth of it, we can just draw it right on that face. To me, that's pretty simple. So I'm going to select that face. First, I think I have to make sure the body is active. There you go. All right, now I'll select that face, the body is active, and then select sketch, and it'll put a sketch right there. I'm going to use this external projection and select that, and it gives me my reference lines. I'll right click to get out of it. Now I'll just simply draw that. Let me just zoom in. Just draw that rectangle. We know that the rectangle, the tongue itself is a 1/2 inch wide, so 0.5. Select enter, and it was 2.5 in height. Enter, and then now we just need to do the math to center it here. We know that it was a 1/4 of an inch down vertically from this line here, the top of the 4x4 post. So I'll select this point and this line, select dimension, put that there, and go 0.25. There you go. And so we got the rectangle. It slides left and right. Now we just need to center it on that post. Let me grab this dimension. We have a 4x4 post, so it's 2 inches from here over to the center, which means another 1/4 inch in either direction would put this line here. It would center this slot. So we're looking at 2 inches minus half of that, 0.25. So we're looking at 1.75 inches. So I'll just go from this point over to this line, dimension it, pull it over there, and we'll go 1.75, and that puts it in the center. Okay, select close. In order to put a slot in there, we use the pocket command over here on the right. Select pocket. We can grab this arrow and we can go all the way through it. We can set the depth. The length over here, I'll just type what depth did he used 1. So select 1 and enter. Okay. All right, now he rotated the slot and this board with the tongue. He copied and rotated it around. We can do the same thing, but in order for this to be copied or more importantly, in order to be rotated around and it land on this face over here in a proper location, we need to create some type of a datum line that we can select to rotate these items around. So what I normally do is I'll select this datum line right here. Select datum line. I think I have to, okay, yeah. And then this panel comes up over here on the right, and it's asking to start selecting items. I'm going to select this face here. And what that does is it puts a line right in the center of that face. Although it's down here on this, down in the 4x4 post, I can raise that up on the Z-axis, but let me see. Attachment offset. I might be able to move it from here. Let me select in there. There you go. And as I'm rolling the wheel on my mouse, it's coming up out of that. There you go. Dotted line indicates it's hidden, it's inside, and then the solid line means it's outside. So, just so some of it's sticking out the top, that's probably good enough right there. I'll select OK. Now we have, we'll call it a pivot point. I think that's also called a fulcrum, if I'm not mistaken, that we can rotate that around on. So now let's try that. First, we'll begin with the slot. That slot was a pocket. Here's the pocket right here in that body. We'll select pocket. Okay. Let me select over here first. Now come back over here and select pocket. There you go. And with that pocket selected, we'll go up here and select a polar pattern. You can see that we have two occurrences over here on the right, and it's pink, showing that there's the slot, and then it wants to put the slot here. Well, that's because it's slotting it normal to the sketch axis, which is this XY plane. It just flipped it over and put it here. So we want to change that to, we want to select a reference. And that's where this datum line comes in. Now I can select the datum line, and it puts it 180 degrees out. And the reason why you're doing it's 180 degrees is because it's set to 360 degree sweep with two occurrences. So what we want is a 90 degree. We want two slots, but we want this to be a 90 degree sweep. So let me do 90, and then I'll just select show final result. And now you can see that that slot has been moved 90 degrees around this datum line. And I'll select OK. Okay. Alrighty, come up here, select perspective. Now let's rotate this around. Copy and rotate. What I'm trying to do is just copy this body right here, which is body 001. So I should be able to copy that by selecting it, and then up here and edit, copy it, and then all of this I accept. OK. And now I select in that panel, model panel, and I should be able to select paste, and it's still giving me two bodies. I don't understand why it's doing that. I know that that body 002 is the 4x4 post. So I'm going to right click and delete that because I don't need a copy of that one. Okay, that one's gone. Now this one, body 003, is a copy of this here. So I should be able to right click and transform that. And I should be able to select custom, that reference line there. Yep, it selected that reference line. And then with this rotation set to 90, oh, there you go. There you go. Select that, select it. And then I should be able to select this dot here and then swing it around 90 degrees and select OK. I'll try to push these into the slot by grabbing the body, selecting transform under edit, or I could have right clicked the body. And or set the 1-inch increments. So I should be able to grab this arrow and it should snap. Let me select it first, and it should snap it into place. Select OK. Then I'll select this body, which is body 3. Right click it, transform, and select this arrow, pull it until it snaps into place. There we go. Okay.
So you can see how this is going to be a 1/4 inch down, just like what we'd measured it to over here. And so the other thing you could do is if you decided, for example, that you wanted this to be more, let's say, a 1/2 inch down, what you could do is you could actually come in here and select all of this geometry, just like this, and you can actually move your slot down. So, and you could do the same thing over here. You could select all your geometry, move it down on the blue axis, and inference it to this point. So now all of these are a 1/2 inch down instead of a 1/4 inch down. And then you can kind of move your slots, your pegs down a little bit to kind of line them up, and you're good to go. And I guess the point of that is to demonstrate that you can come in here and you can kind of adjust the stuff that you create in here if you decide that you want to change your dimensions and that kind of thing. So that's one of the powerful things about using SketchUp for woodworking, is you can come in here and you can change stuff like that pretty quick.
For FreeCAD, we can do the same thing. Let me back these out. If previously you see me up here in this panel selecting the bodies, you should be able to click it once and then click it twice to highlight the entire body, and come up here and edit and do the transform also. That's in case, let's say you got about 50 bodies in here and you didn't label them. You can grab the objects out here and make it a little bit easier. Just click them twice, and then the whole body will highlight, and then you can transform it. It's in addition to doing it also up here in the model panel. All right, well, that one's selected. Spacing's set to 1 inch, and we'll just pull this away. We'll do the same to that. Yep. I wonder if it'll. Oh. All right, I gotta okay this one first before I move to this one. Click it twice, right click it. Oh, it lets me transform if I right click it as well. Great. And I'll just move that one away. Okay. So what he did was just move the slots. And in order to do that, all we have to do is on this body here, this was the face where we created that pocket, which is here. And it's this sketch. So we double click on that sketch, or you can right click and open it or edit it. I'll double click it. There's the sketch. And it's just a matter of grabbing that, double clicking that dimension and changing it to 0.5. And then close it and the slot lowered. Now, because we use the polar pattern and created a second slot on the other face around here, around the corner, that one also dropped down in place. We didn't have to do it twice like he did. All right. So, and he called these the pegs, but these tongues here in this board, we now have to move that down. So we'll have to transform these boards to go down another 1/4 of an inch. So let me double click on that one. Right click and transform, and I'll set this translation over here to 0.25. And again, you don't have to select OK. Just put in the 0.25 is all you need to do. Then you can go over here, like grab this W line, and we want it to go in the downward direction. There you go. It just snapped into place. Then we should be able to actually just start moving it in with this line here. Okay, it needs to go in another 1/4. Boom, snapped in. All right, I'll select OK. OK. All right, and we'll do the same here. Double click on that board, right click, it will transform it, and we will, it's already set to 1/4 inch, so we'll grab this W line here. We'll pull it in the direction that we want to go. There you go. Now we grab this one and we'll pull that one in. And that should be flushed up against it. And select OK. Now what I'll do with this datum line, all you gotta do is come over here to this panel, and when you see the datum line, use this little eye icon, select that, and it'll hide it.
So the next thing you could do is you could do a tongue and groove joint. And so the way that you'd do a tongue and groove joint is you'd come in here and you'd draw your wood piece. So again, I'm going to go with a 2" by 12" piece just for the sake of simplicity. And these pieces might get a little bigger than that, but we can go ahead and do this for now. So let's say that this is a 1/2" piece of wood just like this. What you could do is you could come in here and you could model out. Basically what you could do on this face is you could divide this inline just like this. You could divide this into 3 segments, but then what that would give you is that would give you a length just like this. And so what this would do is that would give us a little piece right here that's equally spaced with the pieces above and below that was 3/16 of an inch long. Well, we could draw a 3/16 inch piece over here and then just use the push-pull tool in order to come over here and do this. But the other thing you could do before we even do that is you could also move this across your face using copy mode. And so now what you could do is you could push pull this piece to the end just like this, and then if you double click on this, it'll remember the length of the last extrusion that you did, and you may have to come in here and heal this face and also kind of flip these faces so that the right face is facing outward. But if you double click on that, it'll extrude that all the way along here to whatever length your last extrusion was. And then you can just come in here and you can erase these lines out. Well, then you've got a nice smooth piece just like this. Now you can make this a group, and then you can make a copy just like this, and you can see how that groove fits real nicely into that piece.
We'll start a new body, new sketch. We will use the XY plane. Do the rectangle. We'll do 12", enter. 2", enter. That gives us the size of the board. I'm going to right click to get out of that rectangle mode. And now I'm going to just give a dimension from this dot over to this line here. And I'm just going to set that at 2", just random. Now we're fully constrained. I can close it. I'll use this command up here, select it, and it brings it into the center of the screen. And we'll pat it at 1/2 inch. You can do 0.5, or you can use a fraction. I'll do a fraction this time, or 1/2 inch. You can see it does the math there. It sets it to that. All right. Now that is how he did it in SketchUp. And then he came over here on this face. He put a slot here and then more like a stub there and ran it along this edge. I could do that as well, but I want to show you a different way that I think is quicker. So let's do that. What I'm going to do is erase this body. I want to delete it, right click it, and delete. And let's approach this from a different perspective. I'm going to select body. Then I'll do a sketch. This time, I'm going to use this YZ plane. And what I'll do here is I will rough out. There's a vertical constraint you see right there, horizontal, another vertical. You can see the horizontal constraint showing up there. You can see the constraint where it is attaching to that line, coincident to that line. But if I move it over slightly, I should get a vertical constraint as well. There you go. All right. Go over here. Now I'm drawing my tongue and groove kind of mirror of what he did, but you get the gist of it. And we are horizontal, vertical, horizontal, vertical, and then I'm just attached to that to close the loop. And what I'm going to do is just go ahead and select this in the upper right, select right so that we're looking directly to it. That looks pretty bad, doesn't it? But what we can do now is we can do things like, we know this line is 2 inches. Oh, I was way off on that. All right. All right, 2 inches there. I'm going to make this line a horizontal constraint by selecting this. We'll grab this point, move it down, kind of shape it to where it should go. Actually, I can slide this over and I can grab this line and slide that out. That'll bring us into where, into the shape that he has. All right, bear with me. I know this looks ugly. So he was using 3/16 as a division, but that would put us at 9/16, which is actually over a half of an inch. So what I'm going to do, I'll just make this tongue here 3/16. Okay. And I want to make this line and this line equal, put an equal constraint on it. All right, so if I change this one will change as well. All right, now these lines here, they have to align. So I will select that line, this line, and it is not parallel. It should be coincident. That's not working. So I think I have to have a point and a line. Okay, I'll use this point here. This point and this line, or those 2 points, I think I could make coincident. And that's not working. So I will back out of that. All right, what are we going to do here? Oh, I'll tell you what. I think I know what's going to happen here. We can make this also 3/16. 3/16. Enter. Okay. Then we'll make this line and this line equal constraint. You can see we're chopping away at these degrees of freedom here. We're down to 6. what I'll do here is set these two lines equal to this line over here that has that 3/16 dimension. So I'll select that line, this line, this line, use the equal constraint. Now they're all equal. We're down to 4 degrees of freedom. We know that overall the thickness of the wood is 1/2 inch. So I'll go from here to here. Set that at 0.5. And I'll do the same here, here, here. And that's redundant because I am making it 0.5 on both sides. And we already have these horizontal constraints. So with that 0.5 over here, all the way across the other side, it's going to be 0.5. So what we have to do now is lock in, that height right there, this height right there. So what I'll do, is just use 3/16 on one side, unless, hold on, might be able to figure this out. If I go down to this midpoint here, that midpoint of that line really should be 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch minus 3/32. Okay, so let me select that, and that's what I'll type in. I'll do 1/4 inch, 0.25, minus, and I'll use a fraction, 3/32, select enter, and it gives me that dimension, and there we go. So now I'll set this line and this line as equal. And everything should be locked in now except from left to right over here. So if I grab this, it's locked, the shape is locked in. I just need to locate it off of this line here. And I can just go ahead and make it coincident to that origin point, or I can give it a dimension. Let me move this over some from here to there. It doesn't matter, but let's just, for simplicity, I'll just go ahead and select that point, that origin intersection, and we'll select a constraint of coincident, and that puts it there. It's fully constrained. I'll close it. Now I'll pat it. We could reverse it and go in the other direction, or not reverse it and go in this direction. It doesn't matter. He made it 12 inches over here in length. Let me just type 12, enter, and there we go. Now this is another case where if you're used to SketchUp, what he did was not bad. I approached it different, and it looked like a lot of work, but you can hear me say this over and over during these demonstrations, is that the more you use FreeCAD and you're not trying to teach somebody and you're just in a focus mode, you knock this stuff out pretty quick, just as quick as the SketchUp, if not faster. It just depends on what programs you get used to. So yeah, this looked like it was a lot of effort, but actually it really wasn't. I was just trying to explain all my moves where normally I would just start whipping things out, using a lot of, I don't know. I think I'll just leave it at that. So now, let's just copy this like he did. I'll select this body, right click it, copy it, select OK. I'll select over here in this panel, select edit, and I'll paste it. Close these bodies. There you go. Now this body here, you can see by these little highlighted corners that that body is occupying the same space. So all we have to do now is move it. So with this body selected, right click, transform. And right now it's set to 0.25 or quarter-inch increments. So I can grab this arrow over here and pull the body in that direction. And hopefully it lines up, which it does. Okay.
So a box joint is a corner joint where you kind of cut these little fingers into the wood just like this so that they kind of sit together. You probably see this on a whole bunch of wood boxes and that kind of thing. But what you could do on this one is you could come in here and you could draw your piece of wood just like this. In this case, I'm actually going to draw this standing up. So all I did is I activated the rectangle tool and I tapped the left key or the left arrow key in order to lock this to my green axis. But again, I'm going to do, in this case, we're probably going to do a 6-inch by 12-inch piece. Whoops. Or 12 by 6. So just kind of a taller piece in here just like this. I'm actually going to move this down so it's not quite as tall. So this turns out to be a 4-inch piece, but there's a few different ways you can do this. First of all, you can extrude this to give it depth. So if you've got like a 1/4-inch piece or a 3/8-inch piece just like this, I'm going to put it on a 1/4 just because that's a little easier. But all you need to do now is you can just come in here and you can just measure how tall you want one of these fingers to be. So like if you wanted this to be a 1/4-inch, just like this, all you need to do is use the tape measure tool to add these guides. Just like this. So now I've got this in here as a 1/4-inch piece. Well, now I can draw a line in here just like this. I can use the move tool to kind of copy them across just so I've got this in here as like a full rectangular piece. And then all you'd really need to do at this point, and there's a few different ways you could do this, but I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of all this geometry just like this, and then I'm going to push pull this piece over here so that I've got kind of my my kind of like tongue and groove piece in here just like this. And then all you'd really need to do at this point is you could actually just select all of this geometry and copy it down just like this, and then you could type in ×5 or ×6 or ×7 and hit the enter key, and that'll just copy that over and over again. But what you can do is you can use the push pull tool like this, and then once you've done it once, you can just double click on a piece and it'll just repeat the same thing that you did last, just like this. And you can see how what that did is that push pulled all of these. Well, now you can see there's kind of a hole in here. Well, all you need to do is to fix that is just draw a line across the face just like this, and that'll heal all of that geometry. And then you can just come in here and you can just erase out these extra pieces just like this, so you've got kind of a smooth line along all your little teeth right here. And you can do these to any size, just adjust the way that you set your dimensions, but then you do the same thing. You just triple click on this to select everything. You'd make a group, then you just make a copy just like this, and then all you need to do is rotate it. And you probably need to go ahead and flip it as well. So you can select flip along the blue axis just like this, because you can see at the top there's a different tooth than at the bottom. Well, if you flip it, then you can come in here and you can just line everything up just like this, and you can see how this joint lines up pretty much perfectly. So that's kind of a box joint.
Start a new body, a new sketch. We'll go along the Z-axis here, or you can select it here. But I generally use what's out here in the 3D space, XZ plane. And I just put it in perspective for the SketchUp feel. I'm going to do this rectangle. The constraint to be coincident to this line here. We'll start the rectangle, and we won't use the mouse to select a point. We'll just start typing in our numbers, which this is going to be 12. Hit select enter, and then he used 4 inches height there. And I'm just going to give this point a coincident constraint over to this vertical line, vertical origin line. And there you go. And I'm just going to select 1 inch. And that is a fully constrained sketch. Select close. Use my mouse wheel back out a little bit. And another thing, instead of the mouse wheel to kind of move it around to get it into the screen, this command up here, you can select that and it just brings it right into the screen where it needs to be instead of you fiddling with it. So there's our sketch. It's highlighted green. It's ready to be padded. Pat it to 0.25. I just typed that in for the length. Select OK. All right, for this one, we'll go ahead and put the slots in here, and then we'll make a copy of it and make adjustments so that it fits. All right, I'm going to select this face here, start a new sketch, and a new sketch will be attached to that face. I'm going to select to bring the references in. I'll just go ahead and use this line. That now brings us in a line element. I'll right click to get out of that. And then from there, we should be able to draw a rectangle. And we know it's a quarter by quarter. So put 0.25, enter 0.25, enter. I'm going to zoom in a little. So we got the rectangle. We're down to 2 degrees of freedom, which is the last 2 degrees is usually vertical and horizontal. So what I'll do is just make this dot here coincident to this line. There's your coincident constraint. Now it's constrained to that line. It can't go left, right, but it can go vertically. We know that we want to constrain it from this point to this point at a 1/2 inch. Oh, was it 1/2 inch? No, 1/4 inch, so 0.25. I'm going to right click to get out of that. We're fully constrained. Now we close it. And what we're going to do here is put a pocket in it. You can see that it started the pocket. It's now 0.1. It defaults to that 0.19 depth. We want that depth to be, try a couple ways here. We could either type in 1/4 inch, or under this type, we can go to the first face, which it did. and select OK. All right. Now we just need to put a number of occurrences in here. So with the parametric, you can expand what's underneath that body. These are all the what are they called? These are the actions underneath the body, and the pocket was the last thing that we did because they are in order. So I'll select that pocket, and now we want to multiply it down that vertical face of the wood. And by doing that, we'll select, let me select the pocket one more time. We'll select this up here, which is a linear pattern. There's the first occurrence. Here's the second occurrence off to the right. Come down here. We want it to go vertically, not horizontally. Vertical. You can see now it's way up here. We want to reverse the direction here. Now it's in the right direction. But instead of extent, we want to go with spacing. And we'll change that spacing. I believe it's 0.5. Let me try that. 0.5. And I'll select final result. Or you can just select your mouse out here. There you go. And yeah, that should be correct. A half-inch spacing. So now the number of occurrences, I'll select it here. I could just type in the number, or I can just keep clicking and they will stack up. All right. So that's where the cuts are going to be made when we select OK. Select OK. All the slots have been made. Great. Okay. All right. Now, if all goes well, I should be able to select this body. Well, actually, I could just right click it. I'm going to copy it. OK, everything there. Select in this this model list here, and I'll paste the new body, which is here. Now I'll select the new body, right click it, transform it, and what I'm going to do, instead of moving it like that or this way, I'm going to rotate it on this line here. Currently, the rotation and all movements are based on this as being the origin. So we need to change that origin to custom. Come in here and just select one of these vertical lines. There you go. And now I can rotate it around. Since this rotation was set to 90, it just snapped into that 90-degree position. I can set that to anything I want and it'll snap into that position, but it was already set to 90. So we'll go with that. We'll select OK. Now you can see the problem here is that we need to change the slots on this body over here. So I'm going to right click and make this the active body. And let's see if we can. There's the sketch. I will use this upper left command toggle section. And what that did is it just removed the other body. I believe it did. All right, let me get out of this because something's looking funny. This body, I'm going to, there you go, I'm going to turn that off or make it invisible. Then I'll select this body, go down to the linear pattern. Here's the sketch that did the pockets. Okay, so you can see it was over there. Yeah, so we need to take that sketch and move it up so that the slots move up a quarter of an inch. So I'm going to double click on that sketch. There you go. And what we'll do now is to select this constraint dimension and delete it from the keyboard. Now we're back to 1 degree of freedom, where this has the freedom to move where it wants. So let's constrain this point and this point to each other as a coincident. And then I'll close it. I'm going to hide that sketch because you see it right here. I'm going to hide it up here. There, it's hidden. So by moving that sketch inside that body, it just automatically moved everything else with it because of this linear pattern. We right click to edit. It was already set for spacing, and we moved the sketch, and it was spacing the individual sketches. So select OK. Now I'm going to turn this other body visibility back on. Go up here and select perspective, and you can see that's going to align. All I have to do now is just move this body here, which is this body, select it, right click it, transform it. It only has to move 1/2 inch. You can see over here on the right, the translation is set to 1/2 inch. So here, the origin moved to back here, which is fine. We can just grab that arrow and slide it to the left until it snaps in at 1/2 inch. I might be, let me go back because it overshot it. I'm going to change this to 0.25. I don't need to select enter, just put that number in there, grab this arrowhead again, go over it. Now, there you go, locked in at 1/4 inch instead of 1/2. Select OK.
And then the last joint we're going to talk about is a dovetail. And so a box joint is fairly simple in the sense that these are all rectangular pieces over here, but a dovetail is a little more complicated. The dovetail is a little more complicated because you can see these are more angled pieces, just like this. And so what that means is you can't just come in here and draw a box. You have to get a little bit more precise with these pieces. And then what you would do is you just kind of pop this piece on the end here in order to complete this joint. But what we're going to do is we're going to come in here, we're going to model our wood piece real quick. So in this case, we'll go ahead and go with 8 inches high on this one. So 12,8. We'll push pull this, and again, I've just been going with, in this case, we'll make it a 1/2 inch. Just like this. And so what you would do in this case is you would actually come in here, and if you look at the way these joints work, they go from a wide piece to a narrow piece, just like this. And so the way that you can draw those is you can just draw dimension lines just like this. So you would draw 1 to the 1/4 and then 1 to the 3/8, and then basically, you know, the difference here is going to be an 1/8. So what we would do in this case is we would come in here and we would draw one piece down at a 1/4 inch. We draw another one down here at 3/8 of an inch. And then we could draw another piece down here, let's say at a 1/4. And then we would just move this piece down by another 1/8, just like this. So these are spaced 1/8 of an inch apart. This is spaced 1/4 of an inch apart, just like this. And then all you would do is you would just pull another dimension off depending on how thick you wanted these pieces to be. So like for example, if you wanted them to be 1/2 inch, you could pull that here. If you wanted them to be 1/4 inch, you could set this at 1/4 inch. I'm going to go ahead and set them to 1/2 inch for right now. So what you would do in this case is you would just come in here and you would just draw lines from the intersections of these points, just like this, and then you would draw a line across, and then all you do is you'd push pull this just like this. And then the nice thing about doing this is now you could come in here and you can just select this geometry and you can use the move tool in copy mode to create copies of that geometry. So you could copy it once and then type in something like ×7 or ×10, something just like that. And then you can just push pull these pieces across. And when I did that, I didn't really necessarily like the way that that looked with how thick this little piece was right here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm actually going to move this, and I'm also going to move my measurement points down by probably 1/8 of an inch. And so that's one of the nice things about SketchUp is you can select this stuff and you can move it down just like that, and so you can adjust this stuff really easily. So the nice thing about that is I could just come in here and I could just move all of that with copy mode. So I can select all of that and then I can move a copy down just like this to that intersection. Then I can type in ×7 or ×8 and hit the enter key, and that'll make 8 copies of this just like this. Well, then all I have to do is just come in here and push pull these. And then once I've done it once, again, I can come in here and I can just double click to push pull each one of those to whatever the last push pull I did was. Just like this. And then all you have to do is come in here and you can erase out this geometry. You can make this a group. So and then the thing about this one is we're going to treat this one a little bit differently in the sense that we're not going to copy this and rotate it in the same way. What we're going to do is we're going to make a copy of it, and I'm actually going to take this copy and I'm going to get rid of all my stuff on my end piece right here. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to delete all of that out. So I'm going to delete out all this stuff on the end piece right here because we just want this to act like a board. But then all we're going to do is we're going to come in here, we're going to rotate this piece to 90 degrees, and then we're going to move these pieces so that they intersect just like this. So you can see how I took this corner piece and I kind of overlapped it onto this piece right here. So if I move this away, for example, you can see that it's just overlapped geometry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece right here and I'm going to move it so that it overlaps over this corner, and then I'm going to explode it because that seems to be the best way to get the intersect to work. All right, so I'm going to explode all of this, but then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to right click on my original piece and I'm going to click intersect faces with model, and you can see what that does. If I triple click and select this whole thing, is that intersects all of this geometry just like this. So all of my faces now have lines that kind of correspond with these pieces right here. Well, then all I have to do is I can just come in here and I can erase out the pieces that I don't want to keep. So in this case, you can see how I'm erasing out the leftover pieces where that intersection is going to occur. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to erase this piece out. I'm going to erase this piece out. And you can see how that's leaving a little bit of an a little bit of a hollow piece in here, and we'll fill that back in a second. But you can come in here and you can erase all of these pieces just like this. And I think if I just draw a line all the way up across here, it'll heal most of these faces. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to come in here and you're going to have to kind of manually fill some stuff in just like this. And actually, if you do that one time, I think that you can just move it down just like this and then type in ×4, something like ×6, and you can use that geometry to just kind of fill that in without having to draw all those individual lines. So just use the move tool in copy mode. But you can come in here and you can erase out this extra geometry over here. Then you can put that back in a group. And now once you kind of slide this back together just like this, you can see how you've got these two edges that are in here as kind of a dovetail joint. So the pieces actually fit in here the way that they need to go. So in this case, we use the intersect faces with model.
This dovetail joint is going to be maybe a little more cumbersome in FreeCAD, but let's shed some light on it. Start a new body, new sketch. We'll go with the XZ plane here. Select that. I'll put it in ISO mode. And he was, I think he said it was 12 by 8. So 12, enter, 8, enter. Then we on this line over here to fully constrain it. Let me right click here. I would select this point here, that line, dimension it, and let's just call that 1. It's fully constrained. Close it. All right. I'll pad it, and over here just type 0.5. 0.5. At this point, we're going to go ahead, before we modify to put the dovetails in there, we're going to copy this body. Select the body, right click, copy. We'll accept all that. Select inside of this task box over here. Paste it. Now we have our new body here. Select new body, right click to transform it. And right now the translation is set to snap in half-inch increments over here on the right. So grabbing this V axis here, I can grab it and drag it and it'll snap in half-inch increments. And as that's going, you can see the translation right here, the V, we moved it 5.5 inches so far. One more snap just to make it an even 6. All right. Now we'll rotate it around by changing the mode instead of the object origin, which is represented here. We're going to do custom, and we will select this line here, and we will rotate it around this W axis. The rotation is set to 90 over here. So we should be able to just select this dot here, hold it down and pull it around, and it'll snap into 90 degrees. And select OK. Okay. And we should be aligned in front. Yeah. And here, over here on the upper right, I'm manipulating it there. Yeah, we're all lined up. Okay, great. Then here, we'll select this face, start a new sketch. And I'm going to use this up here to bring in the geometry. Select that face, and it just brings me all 4 lines. I find that to be easier than to select individual lines, since these really don't count as being constrained over here on the right. I'm just using them as reference. So his first, I'll do the best I can here. It looks like first we just want to draw the pattern, and then we will, here we go, draw a pattern like this. There's my vertical constraint symbol showing up, and then somewhere in here, right click to get out of it. That's all we really need, just a basic representation. Then we'll dial it in from there. So he later came back and changed this line height to a 1/2 inch. So I'll make it 0.5. I know that looks a little weird. And we're going to go ahead and make that point coincidental to that line. Make this point coincidental to this line. Coincidental. And what we could do is just slide them in a little bit here. We know that from here to the end there is a 1/2 inch. Okay, let me right click, get out of that. Let me try that again. It is from here to here, should be, there you go, 0.5. Got 3 degrees of freedom here because we got to lock these in. From here to here, horizontal, I guess vertically, they're 1/8 of an inch. So from here, select that dot, and here we'll come in and select a vertical dimension. We'll make that 0.125. And we'll do the same over here by selecting this dot, that dot, a vertical dimension of 0.125. All right, now this shape is locked in. It's just now we can move it around, and it appears to me from what I could see is that he had this corner up to this line at a 1/2 inch, 0.5. It's fully constrained, but this is an open wire. We need to close it from here to here. So I'll just come up here to the upper left, select a line, select that point, select that point. There you go. You can see the X there to the right of my mouse cursor. That indicates that it grabbed that point. It is constrained to that point. So here's our constraints. We drew in the shape. We put in the dimensions. And grab these, just clean it up a little bit, pull them out of the way. And we have everything pretty much locked in. This 1/2 inch is not looking right to me. I believe I'm going to go with 1/4 of an inch, 0.25. Raise it up there and we'll see what happens there. Okay, 1/2 inch, 8, that's 3/8 there, 1/4. Okay, we'll use that. We'll close it. You can see the sketch is highlighted there, and we will pocket. And we should be able to say to the first face, which what happens there is it just finds the next face and goes to that face. So you don't have to type in the 1/2 inch. I'll select OK there. All right. Now let's do, I think it's called an array or a linear pattern. Yeah. We'll do a linear pattern to do multiple pockets down this line here. I need to go into that body, select the pocket. Yeah, select the pocket, make sure it's highlighted. Linear pattern. Currently, it's set to 2 occurrences, occurrence 1, occurrence 2, and we want it to go vertically. So what we'll do, instead of a horizontal axis, we'll select vertical. And then this over here on the right, you see this. This is to reverse the direction, go the other direction. And now I'm going to set the distance or length. Let me start off with a 1/2 inch and see what that looks like. So I type it in and then I'll say show final result down here. Yeah, that's too close. Let me change that to 1 inch. Final result. Might even want to go with 3/4. Let me try that 0.75. See what that looks like. Select this show result. That's looking a little better. Okay, so with the spacing with 3/4 of an inch, now I can come down here to occurrences, and with this up arrow, up, they're stacking on top of each other because this mode needs to be put into spacing and then show the results. Yep, come over here. All right, first I have to undo what I just did. There we go. Select over here. Now with it in spacing mode, hopefully 1/4 inch apart. You know what? Should be 0.75 spacing. There you go. All right. So now that I got that adjusted right, 0.75 spacing, 4 occurrences. We're in spacing mode, and I can just bump up the occurrences until you see it overlaps down at the bottom. It's not pretty, but I'll go with that. All right. There we have it for that body. Now the next body, I have got to borrow some of the sketch information over here. So what I'll do is go over to this body on the left here, and inside of the pocket underneath that is that sketch. I'll double click it. That's where we had this. And what I'm going to do is do a box selection, hold the mouse down, grab all those lines and constraints, and I'm going to do a Control C for copy, and then I'll close. And we collapse that parametric model report or tree, and then expand that one. Now I'm going to right click on this body and make it active. And while it's active, I'm going to select this face, do a new sketch, and then I will use this command in the upper left here to remove that first body out of the way. There you go, it's removed. Now I can come in here and do the sketch. I'm just going to select out here and do a Control V to take the lines that I borrowed here. And make sure that I have that constrained. Before I start moving it around. So going vertically from here to here, from here to here, from here to here is locked in, but what's not locked in is horizontally across here. So I'll select this point. I'll select this point. Yep, let me undo that. There you go. I'll select this point. And I will do a horizontal. And I will take that 1/2 inch. And then I noticed this line scoots over. It's because this line here is not set to a vertical constraint. So I'll select that line and select vertical constraint there. So now we got 2 degrees of freedom. That's usually the vertical and horizontal direction, but this should be locked in with itself. There you go. All right, so now we get to, let me just move it closer over here so I can zoom in. All right, and what I'll do is I'll make this and this line coincident. All right. And this was, I have to go back to this other body to see what my dimension was. Let me go double click on that sketch. And from this corner here, from here to here, we're 1/4 inch. So I'm going to close that sketch. And I'm going to double click on this sketch to get back in. And it was 1/4 inch from here to here. I can't select that line, so I got to bring it in as a reference. There you go. Now I can select it. So I'll set that dot and this dot, and I will make that 1/4 inch, 0.25. All right. Okay, with this one, we have to treat it a little bit different. What was my spacing was 3/4 inch. So let me double check that on this linear pattern. I'm going to right click and edit the linear pattern. And we're 0.75, correct. Okay. Now we'll go back to the sketch. And what I want to do, all right. I have to recreate this for my own reference. Here we go. So this line, 1/2 inch, 0.5. And with this from here to here being 0.5, let me delete that. Delete that. And really the reason why I did this is because I need from this point to this point to be 0.75 dimensionally. Come on. Right click, get out of that, try it again. That point, 0.75. Puts it down to there. Okay. Then we would have a line from here. Let me right click and try that again. There. Okay. Now we want this point and that point vertically at 0.125. Enter. Okay, so now with that, I can draw the, I guess you could call it the inverse or the mating part. So we don't need this anymore. We just need this shape here. So what I will do is start deleting some of these items or these lines. Delete that, and then those dimensional constraints go away also with that line. So now I've got two line segments. I selected that one. You can see it over here on the right. I'll select this one, and that's line 3. So where is line 2? Line 2. It's not line 2. Oh, there you go. That's line 2. We've got an extra line in here. Oh, this guy here. Okay, so all those are selected, but I do not need this line anymore. So I will delete that. And it's 1/2 inch from here to here. We need to do the same from here to here. That's 1/2 inch. Okay. Then we need a line from here to here, or a dimension from there to there. 0.25. That's okay. But we need a line segment from here to here and here to here. Right click. And as long as I attach to those points, it should still remain fully constrained. Okay, we got that in there. Do that one to there. All right, now we have a closed wire. Close. And this one I will pocket. And over here, I'll go at 0.5 deep. All right, now with that, over here on the left, I'll select that pocket we just made. I'll go to the top here and use the linear pattern. Like we indicated earlier, we're going to go in a vertical direction. And we're going to reverse the direction here. The mode that we want to go into is spacing, not extent. And then we will change the spacing to 0.75. And then I'll put show final results. That looks about right. Yeah, I think that's going to work. All right, so then now occurrences just keep going up. And that last one we don't need, so I'll take that away. Select OK. All right. Now let's move that into position. First, collapse the bodies. Select select that body, right click it, transform it. It's going to move at 1/2 inch increments, and it should yeah, it looks like it's going in there. There we go. All right, select OK. Tap out here. And that's one way of doing the dovetail in FreeCAD. All right, you made it to the end. Thank you so much. That was a long one, but wow, there's so much information in there. And I hope you took notes, and I hope it improves your FreeCAD journey, as well as I learned some things on my own. I enjoy doing it. I learn from it, and I appreciate you watching. Thank you very much. Have a good day, and steady as she goes.